Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body, this meeting of the planning board will be conducted both in person and via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members may attend the meeting in person or may attend remotely by following the instructions on this agenda. For those who are in person, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to Chapter 30, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of a public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair will inform other attendees of any such recordings. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. Except for procedural and housekeeping matters, town residents shall have the right to address a board on any item that requires a vote at a time before the board votes on that item. Such residents will be allowed as much time as the proponent of an item is permitted to have. So with that, we will call attendance. Do we have to do a roll call? Nobody's here.
Nobody's online. For the record, nobody's online. Everybody's here in person, so we're good.
Okay, so we have Malcolm here, we have Jonathan here, Jackie is here, I am here, Brandy will be joining us, and Jeremy is absent. Do we have any? Sorry?
I'm sorry, I said without leave.
Without leave?
Absent without leave.
Okay.
Hey, Wall.
Do we have any Form As? No Form As. So I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the June 13th meeting.
As amended, so moved.
As amended, Jonathan moves.
Second.
Malcolm with second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We will move on to the next item. What I'd like to do is to switch item 4 and 5 so that Brandy can be a part of item 4. She should be here within 10 or 15 minutes. Is there any,
Oh, here's Jeremy.
okay, Jeremy has joined us.
No longer able. The late Mr. Higa.
This is Brandy's seat, but you're.
Oh.
This has been retro.
So is there any opposition to moving item 4 and 5?
Nope.
Okay, so item 5 is a discussion of the master plan. Jackie, do you have anything for us?
Well, what I'd like to do is have Brandy here, because I will be quoting her a lot.
Okay, so we need Brandy for item number 5. So we can put that one on hold. Shall we do town planners report?
Sure, just briefly, the Lake Mansfield project is wrapping up and it'll be reopened on July 1st, which is Monday. For the recreational season, so looking forward to that. It looks great so far. It is still a work in progress, you know, the final shrubs, trees and wetland plants won't be installed until the fall, so you will see areas that may be roped off or fenced off. Give it time, it will grow and evolve. Contractors will come back and finish the planting in the fall. But for the summer, it will be open. Second item here is the open space and recreation plan project update. That's been a priority of both the select board and the planning board, and an approved open space and recreation plan is really important for the town in terms of getting grants for trails, for open space improvements, for open space acquisition. So an open space plan is important. The last one we had expired in 2018. We started a renewal process right before COVID and then had to shelve it as COVID took over. So we want to start that again. We have received some assistance through the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission's District Local Technical Assistance Fund, the DLTA fund for this year. We're using that to hopefully receive additional funds from the state. We've applied for a planning assistance grant, as well as we've applied for an ADA and accessibility grant to evaluate our open space and recreation plan. And in fact, all of our public parks and places, evaluate it with a lens on accessibility. So all those things hopefully will be funded and come together, and we hope to kick off an OSRP update in the fall. So the last time we did one of these was in conjunction with the master plan. So if we do begin also a master plan update, it could mesh really nicely.
So who actually writes it?
The last time we had a small committee working on it, this not in 2013 when we wrote it, when we tried to restart it before COVID. There was a committee that included at least one member from this planning board. It was Pedro. There was a member from the Parks Commission, a member from the Concom, a member from the Select Board, and a couple citizen members on a open space and recreation task force. To look at the existing plan, see what had changed since the last plan, what needed updating, to host community meetings and gather public input and do surveys and things like that. So I think we'd probably follow a similar format, set up a committee of people who will be dedicated to leading the project. This time we will have more staff support than we did last time, which is great.
But who will actually do the writing?
It'll probably be through my office and Berkshire Regional Planning.
Yeah,
What's interesting is that's like one of the first points that I was going to make, looking at the notes from our meeting on April 11th, when we went through all of the reporting on planning board activities. And this is a quoting Brandy, but basically she a couple of times said, we need to have a combined discussion of PERD and ORSD. And went to, as part of the discussion of density transfer, et cetera. And so that was number 11, which was encourage development that incorporates existing or future agricultural and food production into its overall plan and explore natural resources protection zoning. Those are two things that elicited very complex conversations. And Brandy said, this is something that we really should be looking at and have a separate meeting, maybe a discussion to talk about PERD, ORSD, and clusters, essentially is what was the overarching desire.
are you relating that to open space and
We're
recreation?
talking about the process of ORSD and the conversations and discussions and who would get together to talk about it.
Great, well, stay tuned and hopefully we can meld it with any master plan update that this board wants to kick off.
But I'm missing the connection between open space, recreation, plan unit, residential development, and open space and recreation.
Well, I need to drop back into our conversation on April 11th, and it'll be helpful.
Okay, so after when we did the update, though, there was a conclusion to that, right? We updated
There wasn't.
there
No.
wasn't.
No, we had a meeting like in January or February of 2020, and then it just kind of, yeah, I was gonna say fizzled out. So yeah, it was,
I thought,
we had
like,
done a survey, we had held a couple of community meetings, I think, but you know, now we're further along, we have new demographic data, even more improvements have been made, for example, Memorial Field, like Mansfield. Other trails have been added by public and private partners, land has been conserved, land has been developed. So
I thought the sidewalks in Houstonic was part of it, as well as the trail all the way out to CHP.
Right, so even since 2020, there have been changes and it's probably good to restart. Yeah, not from where we left off then, but to restart again.
Right, okay.
Take stock and look at needs.
All right, anything else on that? Well, since we don't have, we'll wait for board and committee updates at the end in case Brandy's got something. Let's just tackle number 4, which is zoning enforcement, a continued discussion regarding enforcement of conditions of site plan and special permit approvals, including possible language to add to the bylaws. So at our previous meeting, I don't know that there was any consensus or whether or not we were going to include any language into the bylaw. So you guys know that I feel pretty strongly about having some language in there. So I sent out language to the rest of the members here to review, so we can maybe discuss that and bring up any other issues that you guys would like to discuss with regards to this topic. Do you have the language that maybe Pete, well, there's nobody online, so, or maybe they would like to see, the audience would like to see, do you have it?
Yes, let me.
So
I'm just gonna.
just as a review, and for those of you who weren't here last time, we started to have a discussion about enforcement in town. I know it's been an issue with many things. Of interest to us especially are projects that come through the planning board that get a site plan approval or even a recommendation. When it goes back to the select board, it comes through this committee, and then something happens in the end, and the end result of the project is not at all related to, or has differences to what was came through the process, the site plan process or the special permit process. So we had discussions about this. You know, I think the most salient point that Chris made was that, you know, during construction, there are some changes that get made. So how far do we really want to make the process of doing business in town cumbersome, right? In other words, if you're on a job site and something changes, you know, there's something changes in the program of the project, or something on site causes a change in the building, do we really want to have them come back and go, you know, that developer or that even local resident who's trying to do a project, come back through the whole process again, spend all the money, all the time that it takes to do that? It was in the language, I don't know if you have it, if you can put it up there, it's my contention that when a building inspector goes and inspects a project, he's got at least 5 inspections that he's got to make anyway. I think after the first inspection, where he shows up and looks at the framing, he can pretty much tell if a project has changed substantially. The one project, and you know, just so that you know, one project that's in particular that falls, or that raised interest for this topic, is that the cosmetic surgery, or the plastic surgeon who's on State Road. You know, we spent a lot of time writing zoning for State Road, and our intention there is to make it a much more walkable street, so that hopefully someday in the near future, but in the future, it could turn into an extension that leads you at least to the end of State Road, if not further up Stockbridge Road. And if you go and look at pretty much every building along State Road, there's a door that leads directly out to the sidewalk. So when that project came in, the project for the plastic surgeon came in, we asked them to put a door on the sidewalk. And they built the building and they didn't put a door on the sidewalk. So there was a change, you know, and there, I think, you know, Michelle, you probably have many, or are aware of many enforcement issues in town as well. So we're trying to get, you know, we're trying to get to a place where we have some regulations in place and some responsibilities. So to go back to the language, right? A building inspector's got to be on site anyway. I don't know, I don't see how it's a bigger hardship for him or her to show up with the approved site plan when he goes for the framing inspection or the fire stopping inspection or the installation inspection, especially because by that point, the building is done, and just compare notes and see what's on there. And the idea is to leave it up to the discretion of the building inspector, whether or not there has been a major deviation from the plan from what was approved as site plan. So it's what, hopefully the language describes, and there's a section in there that makes an effort to describe what a major deviation would potentially look like.
You know, our bylaw already says no deviation from an approved site plan shall be permitted without modification.
Right.
I mean,
And I think we brought that up a little bit, and so we need a definition. Maybe you brought up that we need a definition of what.
but it says no. Right now, our bylaws say no deviations. And it says the building inspector is responsible for,
That's in the site plan.
in 10.5.2. Point 4. And 10.5.2.1. Yeah, the building permit can't be issued without the written approval of the site plan, and then down number 4 is no deviation from the approved site plan should be permitted without modifications thereof.
I mean, but it did,
What more do we need?
so we,
But then what constitutes deviation?
that's
right?
what,
You
yeah.
still have to define that, because like nothing looks identical to, the plan.
I mean, listen, I've been doing this,
Oh.
I've been doing this for 20 years, and I racked my head to come up with a building that once we had pricing for a building, once we had approvals for a building, that it substantially changed. I can't come up with something, where that was the case.
It does happen.
It does happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but
But I mean, so what we're talking about on state, I can't be specific, but I don't remember that we were looking for like that they really agreed to do a functional entrance.
they totally did.
The plan they presented to us had a front door,
No, but
the
was it,
existing front door, and then when we said, I looked at the minutes.
Yeah.
In the minutes, it says that they agreed, that it would be.
but that would be like an entrance exit that would, or it was just
No, it was functional. Like you could use it as a front door. We did the same thing for the book
plan
lot.
showed a door with going into a hallway, and
We did the same exact thing for the book lot. They don't use the door, which is fine, but there's still a door there for future use. And just so that the building presents itself to the street. That's the
No,
first
I
step.
get, I get that. But when we're asking for parking be off the street, right? So behind the building. And then we're asking, so we are asking for 2 entrances to,
so, I mean, Jeremy, you could dispute whether
No, I
it was right to ask for that, but the fact
No,
is that
but I,
it was part of the plan, and it was, and they said they agreed to it.
no, I get that.
I'm not sure why it's such a big hardship to walk from the back of the building to the front of the building anyway. I mean, when you go to the co-op, you gotta park pretty far away from the door, and you gotta walk, either way across. I mean, Doesn't make any sense.
Well, depending on the site, I mean, then you have to have an accessible path all the way around, and then. I mean, I quite frankly think our accessible path is just bonkers
sure,
at the co-op.
sure it is.
Like, if you're in a wheelchair, it's just stupid. To get to the rest of the building, and. That's what we're gonna, wow. Anyway.
All right, so okay, so Brandy's back.
Hi, all.
Welcome, Brandy. I'll,
Late.
I'll turn over the meeting to you, but we're well into the discussion. I explained to the crowd gathered here what we're talking about.
Hello, crowd.
And so that's, I think if we can, my last word here is we can focus this conversation not on that project specifically, but on how we can how we can get some enforcement for what we do here. I mean, it's already, Malcolm pointed out again that it's already in the procedures.
And I'm thinking, Pedro, we're during the site plan review, we're all talking about, we're talking about the doors, we're talking about where it should be. I was just in my head going through a project that I'm involved in. And the front door is no longer the front door actively, and ADA is involved in all of this. But that gets worked out during the site plan review. And so what we ultimately as a group agree upon, then that is required.
Right.
So I mean, so that the rubber meets the definition of whether that front facing door is the right door, or the one that's from the side of that. That should all come out in site plan review. And then it should stick.
If we zoom back, just so I have a little context, are we discussing generically whether or not there's already enough meat in the zoning bylaw to not need to add any additional language on enforcement?
Actually, I would recommend that we take out the number 4 there and substitute.
What is number 4? I apologize.
That's the thing that
I'm
says no
behind.
deviation from the approved site plan shall be permitted without modifications thereof.
Take that out and add this.
And add that.
No, terrible idea. Because that's not clear, and this is.
I think that's.
So I
that
think,
actually has action.
can I talk?
Yeah.
I think that, it's, we really need to have a better communication with the building inspector.
Yeah, to that point, I wondered if, oops, I'm sorry. I'm making notes.
Well, I mean, it seems to me, and this doesn't say anything about whether he could grant a, C of O. So you could put in language here that about a C of O, if that's the issue.
That's what that is.
I think that's the most important point is, it can say whatever it is, but if the building inspector, that's where it ends, right?
Yeah.
And so,
I mean.
Unless you want the planning board to do the final.
But I do think that the no deviation here is probably unenforceable, because it's hard to imagine any building that doesn't have some deviation from the plan that they've presented to us.
Well, it's not
Even if it's a
unenforceable.
minor deviation,
It's not unenforceable because they can modify it.
they could come back to us and modify it. Well, I don't think
This-
I prefer that we have major deviations being defined as the reason for coming back.
And that there's a consequence.
Are we going to be, okay,
That's-
I'm speaking out of ignorance, but does this trigger more suits from the people that are trying to build and all of a sudden they can't get their C of O because?
No, I mean, if
Building
somebody
inspector-
wants to do a project, they bring it before us, and that's the project that they want to do. It makes no sense to me why it should change substantially. Honestly, I mean, this is the project that they want to build supposedly. Why would somebody come before us, show us a project,
Pedro.
and then
every-
build something different?
Every renovation changes. Every
That
single
changes.
renovation changes.
Yeah, but I'm talking about a major substantial change.
So
That's
I-
what I'm talking about. Something that's, if they don't put a space for snow plowing, or if the snow, if the snow plow is 30 feet shorter than what they approved, or if their dumpsters are in the front of the building because, for some reason they just didn't they wanted to add a parking spot or something, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, trim here or material there or something else. I'm talking about like a major deviation. Which is like not putting a major, element of a building that has something to do with our planning activities, right? Yeah, I'm not gonna keep talking about that same moment.
So I think where we are in the process was, do we want to take up something like this for a bylaw amendment, right? So I think I like the language because I am sort of with Pedro. I think that there needs to be some additional stuff, but I also think we need to probably engage with the building department and just say, hey, you know, we haven't since the new staff have come on, so I wouldn't want to like put this forward without first having a conversation with them. Just so we improve dialogue, because there hasn't been dialogue previously. I don't know, do you have an opinion about that, Chris?
So I have had a conversation with the new building staff and. As an example, at your last meeting, you approved a ground mount accessory solar system with some discussion about ongoing operations and maintenance plans. And so when I wrote the site plan approval form, I highlighted those as aspects that are particularly important to the board. And that you didn't make conditions of your decision, but that you wanted the building inspector to take note of. And so in providing that approval form to the building inspector with the plans, I highlighted those aspects. And at the bottom of the site plan review decision form, it does say, already says a CO shall be issued for this project only if the project has been completed per the approved site plan and conditions, if any. And so that was communicated, that stipulation was highlighted. And so yes, you can go towards adding this to the bylaw next May if you want, but in the meantime, that conversation has started. And then with every approval, I can literally walk the approval to the building inspector's office. I mean, it's all done electronically, but I could also walk it. And have that, you know, noted in writing for the applicant, the building inspector, and the town clerk's file that says, this is, not only should it conform, but these aspects are also particularly important.
So the highlighted thing.
And maybe we missed an opportunity with the previous building department to communicate like why we changed the zoning and what was important, just to like educate him. He's worried about he was worried about accessible route and, you know, having enough parking and all of that. So our goals and objectives are probably different, right? And so I think with the page turning on who's staffing that department, Chris's commitment, I think we can elevate the level of communication, hopefully get a little bit better enforcement. We have raised this with the select board also, so they can, you know, through town managers, oversight of staff, reinforce. And I think we should just like on all fronts, get better enforcement.
And I think that the form that you present that it is terribly written.
Okay.
That one, no, I read it.
It's
and
not
and
our purview, is it? Can we?
No, I read it and I couldn't understand it. You know, so that's contributing to the problem, I think, instead of solving it, so.
Okay.
So you just mean that sentence, Jonathan? You mean that sentence or the whole form?
No, the whole form that Chris sent us, that goes with the site plan approval to the building department, it's not very clear. It could.
He didn't have the benefit also of our conditions or whatever we add on to it, so.
Yeah.
So,
Interpreting.
I mean, it's a good idea, but it could be improved.
Great.
I hear Mr. Hinkin taking on a side project of amending forms.
He's smiling too broadly.
And so then in terms of modifying 10.5.2.4, is that something we want to be considering further?
I'd like to consider taking
And-
that language that's on the form there and putting it in 10
The language that is
that
up here,
Chris just read out.
that Chris just read out, I see, okay, all right. Is there consensus that we want to add some sort of language, is that what I'm hearing?
I think you should meet with the building department first and
All right,
and address the issue.
But in the end, I think there has to be some consequences to this, to number 4. It just says no deviation. It doesn't say what would happen if you do
Right.
deviate.
right. Yeah, no, that is, okay, I will make an appointment with the building department. Is there anybody, I don't know, can 2 of us go for a set?
Yeah, sure.
Who else
Did
wants
you
to go?
not three involved me as well?
Not 3 years.
Yeah.
Or
Why can't we ask him if he'd like to maybe?
Do we want to haul him before the fourth?
Mhm.
Yeah, I would rather meet him during his regular hours and not ask him to put up. Okay. All right, we'll try and do that in the next couple of weeks. And then we'll
I
decide.
can go with you if you want. I'll probably be next door.
I'll check to see. Okay, that sounds good. All right, anything else on that item? No? Okay. Kim's notes will fill me in on everything that I missed then.
We just, we did town planners report
Yeah,
and that's it. So we're up to master plan.
I already
Okay.
made reference to you, Frankie.
pardon?
I already made reference to you for 1 minute,
Oh, okay.
citing something that you have on the record.
Oh, okay. Yes, that I owe Jackie some paperwork.
No,
Oh, dear. All right. I have not had a chance to talk with Jackie about this, but, just in terms of master plan next steps, so we had engaged with all the boards and committees to the extent that they were able to meet with us, because there were some that are either disbanded or some that just don't meet regularly. So we do have some holes there. And kind of take stock as to where we are in implementation of the master plan, which was approved in 2013, so now is in its 11th year. It is, I think, in some evident that a lot of work has been done, and there's some work that's still left to be done, right?
what was interesting is when I was working on it, particularly looking at the planning board, I was looking at what still needs to be done as opposed to celebrating what's been done.
Yeah,
So I think it would be useful too, when we're thinking about the reports that you all submitted, you're pretty balanced in what they've done and not done.
yeah,
But what are the things that to be celebrated? Because when you're going back and talking, I'm assuming we're going to get into the public participation. part.
that's where I wanted to go next.
But it's like, what has been done, I think that should be highlighted, because not going and say, well, we haven't done this yet, we haven't done this yet, but this has been done. The landscape's changed, some of this hasn't been done, and these are things that we think and we've been discussing, and we want to go forward with this. So, I mean, I think it was just interesting to me, because I was always looking for what needs to be done, what have we missed doing? But flipping that around, there's been a lot of checks by people saying, we did this and did this and did
Yeah.
this. So it's a combination.
And it's a huge testament to the community and how engaged everybody is. It's Chris who is annually led groups of us through things we need to do. So
Yeah.
I think in terms of success and implementation, I think we're doing great. So I just wanted today to try and outline kind of next steps, how to move forward, and get some feedback from everybody. We had said, initially we wanted to take stock where we're at, and then we wanted to hear from new boards and committees, and there are a heck of a lot of new boards and committees. I don't know if we can do that in groups maybe, or I think it will be impractical to like split up the way we did before and try and go meet with all the new boards and committees, but I'm open to discussing that if you guys feel differently.
How many do we have?
Do we have a list of them?
They're on the website, and there were like 11 or 12 initially, and how many are there total? Like 45? I don't know, it's a huge number.
Maybe we should start there.
Have we had?
What's that?
Simplify.
Yeah.
Boards and committees.
I know.
Boards and committees has been
It's,
a little bit, yeah.
so we can put a list together of all of those, but so we wanted to do two things. One was meet with the new boards and committees, frame up that we are sort of evaluating the master plan and trying to ascertain whether or not we need to update it. Given that we have formed this many more boards and committees, there are probably issues that are different than what is in the master plan that have arisen in the last 11 years that warranted the forming of that committee. Hear what their issues are, but I think then move more broadly into the larger community, and we wanted to engage with a broad cross-section of the public. Maybe even using the roadmap from the master plan for engagement. Jonathan, were you?
I think that's a great idea to do that and get back into the community.
Yeah.
And partner with some of the boards, some committee members, and then go into the community and partner with some key people who live there and know the community well enough. And then we organize it.
Yeah,
And I'd be glad to do whatever is needed.
I would love it if you could help outline like a communication and engagement
I'll-
strategy.
I'll look at what we've done before because I thought that was good. but-
Yeah.
But tailor it for now, which is not as substantial, but it's very tailored.
Yeah, and I am sorry, guys, I didn't have time to pull together a list, but I did want to look at the list of new committees and see if there were like thematically any things that have come up. Like we've got several committees related to housing and we have a couple related to
Well, Housatonic
energy and infrastructure. We've got one for Housatonic,
and-
yeah,
the downtown cultural district. And
Yeah.
all of that, yeah.
The cultural district is because I was dealing with the cultural council, but you keep running into the cultural district. And they're two different approaches, and two different entities, and I think we need to reach together.
Well, we
Mhm.
should make them three so they can compete with the historic.
Well, there's the commission and the district.
Or they could each partner.
I mean,
Yeah, but I think we have to look at it.
last time the process took 3 years.
Well, we're already about a year in, so I think.
No,
we're
we
doing
haven't started
good.
Yeah, it took 3 years when we started the process.
Right, right.
And so now that we have a good master plan,
Hmm.
do you anticipate, Chris, that we could do it in a shorter period of time?
Probably, it all depends on what the community feels like an engagement process looks like. That's where the bulk of the time is spent is. What type of outreach do you want to do? And how long do you want to spend on it?
Is
How
it,
we get feed- did you think the process for the first master plan worked? The public outreach or,
We want a prize for it.
but
Yeah,
because it looked pretty extensive, but it's still.
very
it's hard.
extensive, it was. Multi-part, I mean, in some cases, it was just. Filling the survey. In some cases, it was discussions. It was neighborhood meetings where people could gather. And discuss in groups. So it was. I think it's important to have different approaches work for different people or gathering different types of information.
Were the meetings thematic?
Some meetings were, some meetings were general.
Okay.
So I think the approach that the planning board and master plan committee took was exactly that, to have thematic meetings, to have open meetings throughout the process.
One of the things we talked about early on was making a decision at some point as to whether we're doing a new master plan or whether we're just creating a new version, a 2024 version of our existing master plan. That could determine how much effort and length it's gonna take. How we're gonna make that decision and when.
I was gonna ask if it's after we have outreach that we make that decision.
Maybe preliminary outreach.
I
There's so
think
many
we're,
variations on a theme here, because you can do an addendum or an update.
yeah,
Additions too.
In 2010, I think the planning board and select board decided a new plan was needed. The tenets and goals, strategies of the 1994 plan were solid, but so much had changed over 15 plus years. So I think that was a decision that the two boards got together and said, what do we do? I was new at the time, I think the town manager was new at the time. And I think there was a lot of taking the cues from the boards. And I think that was good, it set a solid foundation, so I would look to you and maybe you do have a meeting first. community meeting first before making that decision. Maybe it's at your next joint meeting with the select board. It brainstorm what's changed. Are new people here that you haven't heard from before that should be included? How has the community changed in outlook, in makeup? How have the demographics changed? The age has changed. How have the basic data of incomes and home prices and everything else changed?
We've had.
And if on balance, you think there's been a big change?
How do you engage second homeowners?
So that may all be important enough to,
I mean, that's one of, that's the way, that's one of the ways that our community's really changed.
But that's a great thing to think about, how to reach them. I mean, it doesn't have to be a deterrent, it's just something like, okay, they do have telephone numbers and they do have email addresses, and we can figure out and outreach them. And if they wanna, let's meet your second homeowner.
if the community is the same, and you just want to reach out to the same people and just update the goals, that's easy. If the community is different, then you should
You're making a good,
probably starting fresh.
you're making a good point about the demographics. And it is relatively easy to get the community survey information about the demographics, right? And we could compare that against the demographics in the 2013 plan.
Because the page 1I, or the first page of the master plan says the master plan was developed after rigorous review of data. So that would be rather helpful when you're talking about demographics and economics and this, that,
Yeah, I think it's annually, right? The American Community Survey, is that the,
More or less.
something like that. There's an annual federal government survey of all the basic demographic information. Households and demographic makeup of households, age, race, gender, all of that. And that's readily available. And it's something we could do at the next meeting, is sort of look at demographic information in the community. Look at,
It's
How many new
compare
boards we
10 to
have?
12 years ago to today.
yeah,
It may be this board saying, okay, here's the new data. Gosh, we think so much has changed. Let's go talk to the select board. Let's come up with a way to move forward. This board is the mover of the master plan and the ultimate approving body. But I think one of those things that made the last plan so strong and the implementation of it so made the implementation in fact possible was that the select board was in it from the beginning with the planning board. So maybe it starts here with the planning board, see what we have, look at the data. You folks decide, okay, at our next select board joint meeting, let's present them what we think and how we think we should move forward.
When is that
And then you
scheduled?
two, then you two boards can discuss.
we don't have it scheduled, but when I went to the select board to talk through their list of priorities and where they are in relationship to implementation of the master plan, they're very supportive of getting together, you know, and I thought we needed to at minimum kind of take stock as to where we are and update our chart as to, you know, what's done and what still needs to be done and what maybe is not relevant anymore. So we're probably close to being there, so we could probably schedule a meeting sometime in the next month or two. No,
Gotta give us more time than that.
you don't wanna be in a meeting with them in the summer?
Between now and next month, we won't be.
No,
We won't have
not
to stay.
July, like, I said 2 months, so I'm thinking like.
It's October good.
Chris, when do you wanna have a joint meeting?
Why doesn't this planning board to review data in July or August and a joint meeting in the fall?
I mean, but I feel like more than data, I need to review the old master plan, to see what's in, you know, to discuss what's in it. And
So
Yeah.
let's start bringing our copies of the master plan to the meeting when we've got this on the agenda and we can start chipping through it. Jackie's got a mostly compiled summary. If Brandy would just get Brandy's summary to Jackie.
Oh, Chris owns me stuff too, but.
No,
But, I mean, do we all agree Chris's point was a good one, that if like the makeup of the community has substantially changed, then we should have a new master plan, but if it hasn't, then maybe an update?
I'm not there yet, no.
We don't.
So
Because
not even that.
when,
Yep, ready to say that. Ideas are-
no, it's not that at all. Chris has great ideas, but I don't know that we're ready for a new master plan. Like, when we started this conversation.
But what I'm saying, that using that kind of criteria. Like, if the community is really different, then then maybe we should look at the master plan through that lens, like, the community being so different, does this master plan still?
Well, let's find out. And
Well,
then
I think,
address
but
it.
I think it's a good first step. Like, is the community the same basically, or is it substantially different?
My gut is that it's not substantially different.
Well, you might as well, I mean, but we should,
We're going to look at demographic.
I think it's completely different.
I think it's a good first step.
We're all still here and we're older.
If,
No, when the master plan was written, you could get people to work for you. Not every shop in town had a help wanted sign.
It's not just people, it's the economy, it's,
It's the
yeah.
big picture.
are there different industries, are there different supporting partners, like nonprofits, active or not active anymore?
Yeah.
What's the town's capacity, what's the community's capacity?
it's a community.
Well, and what's happening to the community because of the cost of housing?
That's right.
Yeah,
right.
That's
So there's
huge.
a lot of factors that may or may not
That's huge.
impact the communities out.
I mean, I'm in my mind's eye, I'm just thinking about. You have the 2010 or 20, whatever they did once, 10, 12.
13.
Thank you, 14.
13.
I know, I'm fudging the dates because I started here. Basically, I see that as like a baseline. And I see what we're, and then I'll let the data and what we find change my opinion, but I'd love to see what we're doing now as kind of a sharpening of focus based on change. Maybe it's not writing the whole thing from scratch, but it's something that you refer back to, and then you pull together the key salient points of what's different and what we have to do. I mean, I just feel like the idea of embracing an entire brand new master plan feels like it. Oh my God, we're writing the Bible, but this would give us a chance when we go back. We've got climate change, we've got housing, we've got labor, we've got tons of different things in time and aging. A lot of churn, but we still have to come up with solutions and they really have to be focused.
Chris, is there any repository of the information that was used? The data, demographic information, economic information was used back then? Or is there somebody that might have it that we can reach out
You
to?
have it, it's in the master. plan.
All the data?
All that data is in the plan.
Yeah,
Either, I mean, volume 2 is all of the data.
it's rich in that supplemental master plan.
Okay.
Is that what you want?
I get, yeah, I mean, if it's in there, I haven't looked at volume 2 in a long time. I only reviewed the first volume recently.
Yeah,
been
that
on.
data exists.
Okay.
And I just want to read something that I pulled again from our meeting on April 11th. And it stemmed from the number 160, which is ensure quality streetscape environment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like looking at the town. And one thing you did say, Chris, was look at the town as a whole. That we as a board tend to get into a cycle of reviewing bylaws instead of looking at the town as a whole. And the board's role is much broader. And so, and then this is another quote, or at least I'm quoting the minutes. This is a thoughtful group. He encouraged the board to embrace a broader role other than zoning authors. So I just thought that was really interesting because there's a bigger picture. And this is what the master plan is causing us to focus on.
This board has changed. I mean, only Jonathan remains from that board. So even just this board has changed.
Well, Kim was there. And you were there.
So
All right,
why don't we look for kind of a data review / re-exam in July or August. But bring your master plan next time and we'll have a little read through.
See if we can find some data too. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, we should have it.
But I can send you guys some websites that have it, they update it.
No, I'll jump into it too. And so pull together.
I'll send you the American Community Survey, because that's
Yeah.
a good starting point. Okay, great. We'll keep this on the agenda then for the foreseeable future. So we already did town planners report? Everything's good? Yes. Yes, okay. Do we have board and subcommittee updates, issues or concerns? Jackie?
I don't know.
No? Jeremy? Malcolm?
The new walking tour brochures,
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
they want 100, I got them.
okay, good to know.
I've got 25. I'm selling them.
Jonathan? Nothing? Pedro?
Nothing.
I will say in relation to Malcolm's comment, the downtown cultural district is sponsoring Saturday walking tours this summer. Berkshire Camino is a company that the district has engaged and is paying to deliver those tours. So I think it's a 1 hour tour and it's sort of right before Berkshire Busk begins.
It's a walking tour, not an app. It's not a
Correct,
guided
it's
walking
actually a guided tour.
tour. So we should know of all these different tours because now the Voice Freedom Center is offering a weekly tour. We actually went into the church and met with the architects and this and that and the other. So I mean, there's a lot of action. And walking around
It's
this.
good, walking is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have a lot of different tour kind of resources. We have the brochure down in the lobby, I mean, a manual do-it-yourself walking tour. David Westing doesn't do them anymore, but he used to do historical tours all the time, so maybe this would be a good.
Yeah, the self-guided tour with the app is great. And then the guided tour is trying to fill the gap left by David.
Yeah,
Okay,
I know the Du Bois Freedom Center is also conducting tours
There's
as well.
lots and lots of tours, and also the Upper Housatonic African American Heritage Group. Because there are all these different trails that they're taking people to. So it's very,
It's
getting
wonderful.
over lots of layers of activity.
good. I don't know if anybody wants to mention the BRPC, challenge to test internet speeds. Did we all get that email? I thought you forwarded it to all of us.
I did.
Pedro sent, so Pedro sent it. So between June 20th and July 20th, there is something called the BEAD challenge, which BEAD stands for Broadband Equity Access and Deployment. And BRPC is asking that we share this information about testing internet speed.
And how much we pay to get that speed?
I don't know that they're asking that.
They should.
They probably should, but I think it's more about just baseline access information.
Mm,
So check your email for that and maybe we can see if Eileen's willing to share that out to a broader group too.
Speed is like,
It's a challenge, but
well,
it's the way we rely on internet for commerce and
But over time, you need
Communication.
greater and greater speed because the net becomes slower because everything is bigger.
No, you need a better computer.
No,
it's multi-layered. So
Oh,
yes, all of those things.
yeah.
All right, okay. Any citizen speak?
no,
You're having such a good night.
Can I ask Michelle?
Makes such a.
Can you ask Michelle as much?
Yeah, I don't want to spoil.
Well, it's not citizen speak.
Oh. I can't ask a citizen a question?
Sure.
It's up to the citizen
It's up
whether
to
they
the
want to.
It's up to the citizen
they
if
wanna
the citizen wants to take answers, take questions. I go ahead, I don't mind.
I just wanted, when we were talking about public participation and what to do, your face was distressed.
No, it's not really distress because what I thought was, it actually was a question I had when you were going to start that process of community engagement. if nothing else, you've set aside the master plan part of it for your own PR. You know, getting people to know you and everything, because, you know, the select board's very, very visible and that sort of thing. Planning board, you're talking about a lot of stuff that is, sometimes it's overwhelming for people to listen to it. So, you know, I think as far as your engagement with the community, not everybody wants to sit in a meeting. I find it fascinating. I like the dynamic, I like the dialogue and everything, but not everyone wants to do that. And Chris was fantastic with the first master plan and, all the public participation, community engagement. As, a matter of fact, I went to a lot of the meetings that he had. So I'm just really glad when you started talking about it, I go, okay, they're on top of it. That's still at the front of the list, for you to do that. But, it was a really great process when Chris did it the first time. And like I said, there were a lot of meetings, and I remember there was one meeting at Berkshire South, Chris, and I was the only one there, and he did the whole presentation for me. And I also.
I've just been on autopilot with that.
No, you did a great job, you know, and, also the master plan is a really good tool for any citizen. I think when I was getting my master's in public administration, I used it all the time, especially this volume 2 with the data. Because one of the classes you have to take is analytics, and you have to look at all that data and everything. So it's a really great resource and learning tool for a young person who's interested in planning or government or whatever like that. So there's a lot of layers to it, but I think it's great you're going to reach out to the community. Again, I think it's going to be good all around. I don't see where you're going to have any negative with it, so.
Oh, because I saw grimace, so I was worried.
No, there was something, someone must have said something.
That's too smart, that's me to do.
I'll go to the plastic surgery for Botox.
Can't get in the front door.
It's just not, no. Sorry about that. I do have a question, and I don't want to make the planning board feel uncomfortable. For the record, Michelle Bear, 70 Division Street. And, I am really concerned, you know, you're talking about enforcement. I'm concerned about my neighborhood in R2 zone, and I've gone to the select board regarding what is occurring on Van Dusen Road. The select board has not been open and transparent. They haven't been willing to dispense any information. And what I'm referring to is the railroads dumping. There's more than one issue on Van Dusen Road. But when you live in an R2 zone, the last thing you expect to see are trucks coming in from another area and dumping in your neighborhood. And so I was just wondering, because you are zoning, whether there's any information regarding the rights of a company to do something like that. And I remember what's bothersome to me is that Pedro, and correct me if I'm wrong, you had said something, I think, federal government use an industrial site to dump like toxic waste. And I think you compared it to what's going on in Lee and Lennoxdale regarding PCBs. But with the push to have PCBs transported by rail, and what I see right now on Van Dusen Road, and the town manager is already referred to as a staging area, I'm really terrified. This is, there's a brand new house going in right behind me. And this is what these new people are, and they're not from around here. They're moving in here. So I was just wondering, in the stash of information Chris has, and rather than do a public records request, whether there's any information, and just a citation, I can read it myself and everything like that. Because the select board has not been forthcoming at all with any information, which really, that terrifies me as well. So if there's just a citation somewhere, where I could pull the law or pull the reg or whatever and read it, I would appreciate that.
The bit about the dumping is in the zoning act, 40A, so you can find it in there.
What is that again?
40A,
The,
it's the zoning act, it's,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, the general law is 40A.
but is your concern that when they do the river cleanup, when they start transporting stuff, they're just gonna dump?
Well,
Or they're not gonna be, they're not
On
gonna
down Andrewsville Road, you have these beautiful building lots. Yes, there's an industrial area up above. I know that, and I have some comments on that, not just one business, all the businesses where enforcement could be helpful. But when you come further down, we have some beautiful building lots that have gorgeous mountain views. And some of the lots have sold, houses are going in, there's a house going in right now. We've met the people who are building the house and everything, and they pointed to, like, is that gonna be there forever? And I've been fighting this since December, not fighting it, asking for information since December. And the select board's been very tight-lipped about it, which that makes me very nervous because in the next breath they're talking about transport by rail. But when I hear the town manager refer to it in an email as a staging area, and we hear PC, GE talking about their staging areas, I am nervous. This is an R2 zone. It's not the industrial zone. And so I'll take it on myself and study it, but I just don't know where to go to get the information without hiring a lawyer to do it. So Pedro, thank you for that reference. That's all I'm asking for. And essentially, that's all I ask the select board, just to, can you point me in a direction and I'll study it. But
Michelle, just to clarify, are you talking about the area that is, like, if you're heading from Great Barrington to Housatonic on Van Duzenville Road, across, kind of catty corner across from the Guthrie Center, that space, and then,
Nolan's building lots.
yeah,
Right there, there's a house going up right there.
Yeah.
You can't miss it. You
Yeah.
can't miss it. And in the fall, truck after truck, cruise control trucking out of Framingham was coming in from out of the area and bringing debris in and dumping it. Now, of course, when they were working on the rail, they did it here and everything. You're going to see that going up, but this was being trucked in.
Mhm.
And like I said, the secrecy around it is what's elevating my concern. But as you all know, I do my homework. But sometimes I need a direction, just like what Pedro did. It's like, okay, Michelle, look at this. I'm not asking him to fix the problem. I'm not asking him to help me or anything. I just want the material.
So,
And I don't know whether that's something what Chris, with his expertise, could send me aside, some sort of citation as to what I should look at.
so where are they dumping?
As you go up Van Duzenville Road, and Berkshire Property Agents at one time, I think, had the listing on Bill Nolan's building lots, not now. But right across the street from his building lots.
Oh, across the street from them.
Yeah, yeah, and it's R2. What's really interesting, I find interesting with all this debris, I sit in meetings. And I hear about the environment, we gotta do this, we gotta do that, climate change and everything. Well, stone's throw from where all this is done is not designated wetlands, but there is a pond type of wetland. That's where animals go, birds and everything. We have railroad ties right there. And railroad ties are not a healthy thing to leave there indefinitely. But as you guys know me well enough by now, I sink my teeth into something and I don't let go. So, it's not
Really?
only unsightly, but it is, that's fair. Jonathan's fair. It is fair, but it's in an R2 zone. And we're talking about a door facing State Road. And I know what you're talking about. You're trying to protect people. You're trying to protect the community by holding people to standards. But it's a door. You come up into my neighborhood to see what people are dealing with. We have a gorgeous bed and breakfast on the corner. And you go out the back door and you're looking at this. I just want to know what allows them to do it and why is it being allowed in Great Barrington? And I'm willing to do the research on it. And if I do have to consult an attorney to get more information, I will.
I would think that there's some kind of easement that the railroad has.
But to poison our environment,
No, I
I don't
mean,
think they have a right to do that.
I'm just
Oh.
suggesting that that you might kind of, you might,
But what, like I said, this has become layered right now. Because we're talking about community outreach, and I can tell you right now, the best, most positive community outreach is openness and transparency as to what you're doing.
How about a walking tour?
I've done my own walking tours
That's
up in
what I'm
Housatonic, yes, with Gary Olivier. So, but in any event, like I said, to really know your community, drive down that road. That's what we're dealing with. And like I said, to see these people building a gorgeous home and they come out of their driveway, this is what they're looking at. And just, and like I said, I've been doing this since the fall. I have extensive photos of it. I have photos of the trucks coming in, but I'm not getting any information. I'm not asking for help, it's information. So that's the only thing I'm asking here. If in this world of zoning, there's some sort of document or law I should be looking at. If with Chris has always been kind in the past to forward something, I just need a link or a citation and I could take it from there.
The only other thing I would say is if you haven't looked at the deeds for those parcels, you may want to have those pulled and see what they allow and don't allow.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with a similar situation over in New York State with the railroad. In that instance, they operate fairly autonomously, not within the strictures of state and local zoning. And it took a lot of political engagement to get action out of the railroad to change their behavior. It was a tie storage space in a
piles and piles.
Yeah, no, I get it,
But I understand that,
Yeah,
but what.
I'm not saying it's
No,
not
no, I
right to
get that,
pursue
but
it, I'm just
sometimes a
saying it's,
Conversation like this, at the select board level, has gotten people, is suspicious.
Yeah.
Why are they, I asked to put on an agenda, just to present it, and it's been refused, and I have not been told why.
right,
And so that elevates it. What else is going on? What else is going on is the drive to have PCBs transported by rail. I read that material and they talk about the staging areas coming on down. Town manager references it as a staging area. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to put two and two together what's going on. And usually what you imagine what's going to occur could be worse than what it really is. But that's where openness and transparency comes in. And somebody else may hear a conversation like what's going on about enforcement and say, oh, they want to control everything that's going on. I'm hearing we want to protect the community. So it depends on how you're listening. to
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
And I don't like what I'm hearing right now at the select board level.
okay.
But I appreciate it. I appreciate the reference.
Do you want,
That's all. And like I said, if Chris has anything he can offer as far as a reference, I'll follow it.
do you want the book and page of the deed?
Yeah,
Thank you.
2245, page 180.
thank you.
That's action.
All right, anybody else?
I'm
Yeah.
here as an ambassador for the tree community,
Oh, fabulous.
which is alive and.
Could you introduce yourselves?
Oh, Bobby Houston, 25 there's good energy, 25 free. The committee is good. There's a lot of energy there. And I was sent to just tag along on the master plan process. So thank you for doing the work. I'm on two powerless committees. I'm also on the DAC. And at the DAC, and both of those committees actually think a lot about streetscape, shade, comfort, accessibility. We talk about it a lot. And one of the things that came up at DAC, I'm asking as a private citizen, is the question of enforcement and signage. There's a particular genre of sign that's very temporary, the feathered flag signs that are like on a jib or a jib arm or mast. And they crop up and they look like shit. And the DAC was asking, like, how do we proceed to talk about enforcement and talk about, do we want to make a change in terms of those permissibilities for those kind of particular kudzu flags that come up? I don't know the answer, but I'm asking. What's the process to talk about it?
To talk about it
I actually
I
have a
mean-
similar question relating to that.
to the deck.
Yeah.
Well, I could tell you this, that I dealt a lot with trying to do a revision of the design guidelines. And I didn't even, when I was on the committee, I didn't look at the sign bylaw,
Right.
but I think that you could take it up as a committee,
Uh-huh.
likely propose it, maybe bring it, I think what the change in the design guidelines was gonna come through this board to then go for a change in town meeting. I think that's what we agreed the process would be.
Uh-huh.
So you could do that, right? Just take it up as a board and put the language in there that you think is right. And then I think even the DAC can present it. There's no reason, there's nothing that says that you can't present it on your own.
To town meeting.
Yeah, you're empowered by the zoning bylaw.
Uh-huh.
So, and there's nothing in the zoning bylaw that says that the sign bylaw belongs to you, but I don't see any reason why you couldn't update it.
Okay.
Now,
Well,
those
would it
signs,
be a citizen's petition?
no, it would come from the DAC. They're a legitimate
Everything,
appointed board. I
is it
mean,
a zoning bylaw?
No,
What, the signs?
No.
The signs are not.
They're not.
Signs are not, but the DAC, is, right?
it is, but the sign, it's like I said, there's nothing that says that this sign bylaw is DAC property or zoning
Right.
property, so it's not a zoning
Okay.
thing. I would, that committee in transparency, I tried to dissolve it because I thought it was a waste of time for the people coming before it. But I was overruled on that. Perfectly fine. I think the committee needs to have more power, and that's one way where you can enact some power. And affect some change through those two sort of laws or regulations, guidelines that empowers that committee, the design guidelines and the sign bylaw.
Okay, cool.
Now, those signs, though, I think, if they're on those poles, on the light posts, those are the ones you're talking about,
No,
right?
no, I'm talking about the ones that park in.
Oh, in the ground,
planted
okay,
ground.
okay,
In the trays, they're called feather flags.
okay, great. I don't even know, are those in the
I think they're
bylaw?
temporary.
Are those in the sign bylaw? Oh, they're temporary signs, I guess, yeah.
They're temporary.
Well, they are, they
Yeah.
come down in the winter.
But
They're temporary for 7 months a year.
Some people put them out when they're open. I have seen that in a few instances, so,
That's like sandwich boards and all.
yeah.
I think it would,
There's a
I
lot
think
of
you're,
responsibility.
Brandy is right, it would be under a temporary
That's
signage.
wider.
Okay.
More things in the
Good
street.
luck with that, it's a difficult guideline, that sign bylaw.
No, I know.
So Bobby, if I can understand it correctly, I think of the little flag that says we're open, that's in front of the little yellow house in front of the flying church.
There's a couple of places. that-
And I'm really thankful I can see the flying sign to know that it's open, so I can keep driving.
I'm talking about a particular product. It's a signage product from the commercial signage world. It's a mast that's planted in the ground. It's up, it arcs over, and it has a vertical flat or a vertical sail. They're about 10 feet high. They tend to be, disposable.
It's gonna be challenging because you're gonna run up against them. What's the difference between that and a flag?
Let's let the deck take it up then.
Yeah,
They can.
I mean, it's a term of art, but so
And then it could
literally,
be
if
what
you say
sign
feather,
flag.
if you say feather sign, it's literally,
You might need to add that.
yeah. Okay.
We've
gotcha.
gone down a rabbit hole, but because we're down in the rabbit hole and Michelle raised her hand again,
About the signs.
we're facilitating open dialogue this evening about various things in town that annoy you.
26 pages.
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah,
read them
it's a
cover to cover, and they get really convoluted.
Yeah.
After a while.
Yeah.
Oh, of
And
course.
I mean, you're sitting there and probably 6 of the signs they're describing could be your sign, and you're going, okay, which one is it? And so
It is, it's kind of,
personally, I think it has to be cleaned up. I think it's dated 2012.
It's ancient.
Yeah, it's dated 2012, but anybody could be reading it and go, oh, my sign is this. Oh, wait a minute, my sign is this.
That 2012 is,
Oh, page 10, my sign is this.
2012 is when we took it out of zoning and put it in the town code.
But it's 26 pages. It's,
I might have a Word document of it.
I have this Word document.
You have it?
Yeah, no, you're seeing a
Okay.
DAC Ninja over there.
Oh, no, it's I don't have the sign bylaw. I have the design guidelines in Word.
Jackie has it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I sell it.
Anybody else? There's nobody online. No,
Nobody's online today.
okay, all right, thanks, everybody. We'll adjourn at 7:15.